guy that's got pallets around his foundation. Maybe now that we have a change of leadership in our government, I'll get the answer to that dang question that I've been trying to ask for 3 weeks.
I can maybe explain why. Doesn't mean that I necessarily agree with it or you agree with it, but the owner of the house decided not to rebuild for whatever reason, and that owner of that home decided to put that house on the buyout list and find another place to live. So as we struggle to revitalize the area when the home's been abandoned now for over 20-some months, and the owner doesn't want to rehab it. Now we have to finish the buyout, and as you know, that's been taking some time, so we get possession of the house now in September, for example. Now we have to turn around and find someone that is going to rehab it. And what if no one does? How long do you keep it open for? 60 days, 90 days? It's hard, right?
I got pictures that prove it beyond a reasonable doubt.
I
got somebody here that...
We'll get a mic in a minute. You can ask a question.
I understand. I'm just telling you the logic behind it, that the city's going to take this property. Now the city owns it, and you want the city responsible for whether it gets rehabbed or doesn't, and who they sell it to. Does it become an auction?
Well, pay back the taxpayers the money.
This is for Monica. After visiting the city in North Dakota, which will experience a serious flood, and discussing the protective measure taken there, are you convinced that the full protection against a flood of 208 and CR is possible? If so, please describe what that protection can be. The downtown without worsening flooding on the west side of the river.
Well, first of all, I'm convinced that where we build protection, we can, it worked. It's held for a couple years there. It looked good to me. In places where it's tight, they actually just built straight up walls. They didn't do the big construction zone like the levees you're talking about. So they had a number of approaches. One, just the straight up walls behind houses that we hadn't really heard about or talked about here, and I was impressed with those, and they did help, they did hold. In terms of east side, west side, we can't do one without the other. We cannot do that. So in order to build it, you have to build the whole thing and protect everybody. That's just the flat out truth.
And as a West Sider, and we've got several of them here, Chuck Winicky, myself, Chuck Swore, and Justin Shields, believe me, we will have flood protection on the west side. I'll make sure of it. I'll do everything I can.
Good. Here's our, the Corps of Engineers has already basically said they can't fund the city's preferred plan. And the city's preferred plan that was put together within 90 days after the flood with the help of a couple different organizations actually protects against the record flood of 2008 and another 3 foot on top of it. So it's a very aggressive flood protection system that is partially permanent walls, partially earthen levees, partially removable walls that you put up, a week or so before the anticipated flood. The Corps of Engineers has said this is too expensive, we can't recommend it. So we've asked them, well, can you recommend any piece of it? And they've given us the indication that they can actually recommend part, or they believe they can, because none of this is official yet. It won't be until the end of June. They believe they can recommend a modified east side protection system that wouldn't protect the whole east side even. It would start at Quaker Oats versus further north as the city's preferred plan. And it would be straight walls. It wouldn't be removable. Obviously, as Monica said, this isn't acceptable. But the thought behind our asking them to do that is it gives us a foot in the door to have a core partial recommendation, and then we can use our political support from Harkin and Grassley and Loebsack to push for the rest of the system, mainly the west side part of that.
Hold on, Eddie. So are you saying
We want to give more time?
if you've got
Yes.
if you got a plan for your east side, you will not go through with putting that plan into action until there is a plan for the other side?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the overall plan, the Plan A, supposedly, let's call it Plan A. Plan A is to protect both sides with a combination of removable, standard, levees, walls,
I'm going to
etc.
ask her a question.
Great answer.
Then Plan B would be the Corps' partial recommendation of the east side and lobbying the federal government for a special appropriation. So the Corps would fund 40% of the overall project, and then we'd have to beg and plead for earmarks from the state and the federal government for the balance of the project that the Corps doesn't fund.
Who develop the plan you want? And is it a plan in writing that we could study and see?
Yeah, the plan was developed within 90 days after the flood. It was developed in conjunction with the city, elected officials, city staff, city manager, Stanley Consultants out of Muscatine, Sasaki Consultants out of the East Coast, with the participation of the Army Corps of Engineers. And it was thought at the time that with all these players together putting this plan, that with having the Corps' early involvement, that would not guarantee, but it would maybe enhance the chance that the Corps would make the recommendation. But as the Corps took that model, took that plan and put it through their model, it just didn't meet the cost-benefit ratio. Came out at 52 cents on the dollar. So as we go forward with this, if we start to get pushback from the federal government, so say, well, that's Plan B. We're glad you're looking at Plan B. What if the feds say we can't cover it, but we can do something less than that? I mean, is it conceivable that we're in a position 9 months from now when we're in Washington, D.C., sitting down with all the senators and congressmen? Is it possible that they say, well, we can't give you $500 million, but we'll give you $300 million. Go build what you can for $300, and maybe what we can build for $300 only protects against 29 foot instead of 35 foot. So, but right now we're not going to concede that until we've exhausted all of our options with both the Corps of Engineers and our congressional support.
But again, can we see the plan and the written plan? Can we see the engineering analysis?
Basically, the plan
Develop
made
the
it.
plan?
Yeah.
Oh,
Is it
yeah.
on our website?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get information to you guys where you can pick up information for that. Also, when the study is all complete, that'll all be made publicly available. And I just want to pick up on what Council's saying here is that we feel pretty confident that once we get our foot in the door, that we'll be able to argue. There's actually other arguments we can use called other social effects, regional economic impacts, and environmental effects. And Cedar Rapids is very poised to make a very good argument on those bases, that even though the math doesn't pencil for the west side, that if you look at Cedar Rapids as a community, it's a fundable project that is not only benefits Iowa, but benefits